What's up, guys? Here is hopefully the final segment for the transmission and differential swap. I realize I'm filming an extraordinary amount of footage while doing these installs. So where we've left off the last time is we got our new 6-speed. Oh, look at that paint, looks so good. Bolted in place. So we have to make our connections for our sensors, install a starter motor, reconnect the slave cylinder to the transmission, put our drive shaft back in. Differential, for those of you who are just tuning in, this was part one. Bam. I definitely dig the silver paint over the black powder coating. Just kind of contrasts a lot nicer with all the black undercoating on the underbody here. So once those are bolted back up, we'll finish off with exhaust manifold, the rest of our exhaust, and then our braces. And we have to put fluid in them. For fluid, I run a Redline MT90 in the transmission. It is a GL4 rated transmission fluid. For those of you who do not know, GL4 is for transmissions. GL5 ratings are for differentials. So for the differential, I run Redline 75W90, which MT90 is also rated at 75W90, but the differential is GL5 for the gear set. So I'm gonna be running the same thing in there for the clutch type dip. I ran that with the Torsen as well. Should be fine. I think that's what the second gen RX-7 spec for anyways, and that's actually what I used to run in my FC. So be just like old times. So let's just get in and get right to it, and we will wrap this install up. All right, guys, so there is our starter motor installed and the remaining bell housing bolts as well. Just be careful because some of the bolts on this side also hold brackets in for the hydraulic lines and your clutch slave cylinder. I definitely have forgotten them in the past myself. This time I actually did remember them. But we're gonna finish this off with just 2 bolts for the slave here, and I think then we'll just plug our sensors in. The other thing I think is actually pretty comical is that the amount of bolts that hold the bell housing of the Miata transmission to the motor. You compare this to a car like the FD RX-7 has substantially less bolts, so it's kind of funny how a 100 horsepower car comes with so much more out of the factory. And also I will say that the Miata transmission tunnel is one of the more annoying ones to work in because it is that much tighter. S2000 is probably the worst one I've ever dealt with, and FD RX-7 FC is amazing because it's just huge, but those cars make you appreciate how much room you actually really do have versus when you're working on a Miata trans. right, so before we put the header back on, before it blocks the transmission fill and drain holes, we're gonna fill the transmission up. And like I said, we're using Redline MT90. I use one of these little cheapo pumps from your local auto parts store to pump it in. It takes about 2 quarts total, but I just fill it up until it starts to drip out, and then I jam the plug back in there. So let's do that now. Well, kids, here's a new one for me. So the 6 speeds do not use turret fluid. After I emptied out that almost half a quart in there, I realized that something was wrong. I looked it up and I realized that that is just a direct fill for the transmission itself. So here I am. I popped the fill plug off and I'm letting the excess drain out. So mental note, 5-speed turret fluid, yes, I used MT90 transmission fluid in there. 6-speed, no turret. I just greased the end of the bushing and jammed it in there, and that's how we are proceeding.